Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I am so full of, not blue goo, not proto-molecule, but yum-yum. I'm feeling extremely yum-yum and very, very, very satisfied. We've made it. We have made it. We've gone through the first season of a TV show. Doesn't that give you a sense of just completion, that you close the book on a season of TV? Do you ever get that? Do you get that sense of completion?
Yes and no, because I feel that way more so when it's like I finished a season and I'm up to date. I don't feel that as much with The Expanse because we have several seasons left to go.
Ah, you see, I always look at it, especially if it's a show that's already finished and is completed, I look at it as, I'm this amount of the way through it. But we are your hosts, Ryan and Rachel, of this here podcast known as Yum Yum. Why is it Yum Yum, Rachel? Could you please explain to people why it's Yum Yum? And now imagine these are folk that have not tuned in ever to this show of ours. Could you please explain with vivid detail why Yum Yum? Where did that come from?
No. I never do it with vivid detail.
Give it a try.
No. I refuse. You decided to name our podcast after Yum Yum, which is a phrase that has existed
since Jesus. I think he said it on the cross, I think that was his dying breath. Or maybe it was when he came back from the dead, and that was the thing he said to Thomas about touching his wound, because you see, Thomas doubted it was actually Jesus until the wound was revealed, and then touch the wound of Christ. Yum, yum. Maybe Thomas said that when he stuck his fingers in there. But you're right, Yum Yum is a phrase, but not only is it a phrase, it was used in a series known as Star Trek. No, not just Star Trek. Which one, Rachel? Which Star Trek? Come on, don't you just shake your head at me and pout. Tell me which Star Trek and what was the moment? Why did this all happen?
Oh, you interrupted me. You can take it on. You can continue with your Jesus bit. I will answer your question. No?
I finished the Jesus bit.
Nope. You never leave something like that alone.
It's called a runner for the episode.
I'm not teeing you up for it. I'm not teeing you up for it in this section. I know that I'll do it accidentally at some point later, but right now...
It's harder with the Mormons not being in the episode, huh? Really bummed about that one for a fucking start.
Discovery. It's from Star Trek Discovery.
And what happened? What was this infamous moment where a character said yum yum?
I don't know, Ryan. I've forgotten.
Well, that's it. Thank you all so much for listening to the podcast where we only explained that and Rachel forgot the job. But in all seriousness, we are doing a series where we go through episodes of science fiction TV, one episode at a time. We watch over it and talk to each other and to you about what we just experienced. And today we are talking about The Expanse, and we are watching through this for the first ever time. We have not seen The Expanse before, so please do not spoil it for us. Do not give us this in the book, or, that's this and this. No spoilers, please.
Hey, they got the radiation meds on that ship of yours?
I hope so.
A couple hours. We can make that.
A couple hours till we're bleeding out of places you don't even want to know about. Half that time till our ride leaves.
You told your crew to take off without you? Dick.
And we are here with the Season 1 finale, called Leviathan Wakes, which I do believe is the title of the book that this season was adapted from. And IMDb's summary is the same as last episode's, but I will read it anyway, because there is one major difference. A flashback to Julie's origin story reveals her trajectory. Holden and Miller finally meet and team up to get to the bottom of the strange emergency situation happening on Eros. As the true horror of the events of Eros is revealed, an ailing Holden and Miller must overcome incredible odds if they hope to live to fight another day. Part 2 of 2. Now, we love that phrase yum yum from Star Trek Discovery because it has a very strange sexual vibe to it that comes out of nowhere, where a character licks their lips, flicks their hair back, and replies, yum yum, to a very standard question, which is, hey, do you want to help me fight the bad guy? And we always scratch our heads going, why is it so sexual? Like, is this character who we barely know anything about that's saying yum yum, are they turned on by that? But I know something about The Expanse. There are aspects of it that turn us on, whether it is a character or a moment or an idea. And for me, in this one, it was very hard to pin it down. A part of me was wondering, am I looking at this as the individual episode or the culmination of all of the yum yum that the season has given us? But I'm landing firmly here. I've come such a long way over the course of this watch. I'm going with Miller. In this episode, I found him to be particularly yum yum. Even when he was vomiting and catching it in his hands and throwing it all around the place, Thomas Jane is just... There's something about that guy. The way he threw himself physically all over the set, and the way he strangled that guy and choked that guy out and broke his neck. Oh man, he had that gruffness. And I know that this may be a contentious point between you and I, Rachel, but his hair, I thought it was pretty good in this. The way it was just draped over his face, the grease, the sweat in it. Oh man, the hat, it was a burden on him. Now he's hatless. Oh man, I can't control myself. Now for you, Rachel, what was yum yum in Leviathan Wakes? Was it the Leviathan that woke?
Amos saying boss.
Can I get one that isn't Amos related from you for once? Is there any non-Amos related yum yum for you in this episode?
I agree with your point about Miller.
So no. Tell me, what did you think of this episode? What are some thoughts bubbling in that brain of yours when it comes to this? This is the finale of the season. We've been building to this. So what did you think?
It has a very kind of specific frustration that I have with heavily serialized TV, which is so much of this episode is set up for next season.
Okay.
In like a way where like it's not in a way where it's like, okay, we're done with the season and now we're setting up all of these things. It is very much a continuation of it, but we've solved the central mysteries of this season and they're setting up and linking to the ones that are going to be throughout next season. Like, we know what happened to Julie now. We've seen that. We got the flashback at the start of the last episode. We know where she is. Probably entirely engulfed in the goo now.
She is helping generate the work of the evil scientists in the episode. So would you say that you were not only frustrated, but would you say that you're underwhelmed? Because that's the energy I'm getting off of you. Instead of yum yum energy, I'm getting underwhelmed.
A little bit, I guess. No, I think I'm just feeling like I'm familiar with most of their tricks now as like a writing team of because they've done this multiple times of adding in a new character or multiple new characters so that one of them can get killed off instead of a member of the main cast. Like
They had 2 for that, for just Naomi's story.
Yeah, they did it with the medic, they did it with the Martian, they did it with Miller's friend.
The scruffy guy in this episode who got gooed, evidently, off screen.
And the spy as well.
The spy guy.
Like, so it just makes me not fear for the characters because all of that, like the central ones, like Naomi, Amos, Alex, Holden, Miller, and obviously Avasarala back on Earth is.
I mean, heck,
up and.
I mean,
a thing unto herself.
They even puss out on Miller's side of it, where they don't even kill anyone for him. Havelock lived, you know? Like, he wasn't even what you're talking about, but, like, they leave it for the Rossi crew most of the time. And I can definitely see how that's a frustration because this episode does it quite a bit where there's the risk of our characters potentially dying, but there is no actual risk and they're going to leave the death for these people we have only just met. I was okay. So it's like
death happens all around these characters and they're being impacted by it. And there's something like... I'm not saying that that's not interesting, but the show and the music in particular are trying to sell me fear, and I'm not buying it.
I was okay with this episode. If you told me that this is where the book ends, I would see it being more compelling. But as a season of television, it's fine as an ending, but it isn't making me super hungry to watch the next one right now. There's just something about this that was serviceable, and that's always the biggest complaint that we've had about The Expanse is there's never been a bad episode per se, but there's been too many ones where I would just shrug and go, it was serviceable, but nothing blew me away. Nothing was leaving me wanting more. This did not have the Mormon conversation with Miller, for instance. There was no scene like that where I just was really blown away or leaving this going, oh, that was...
The closest I got was the pachinko scene.
Me and Semi, our hands were small enough we used to reach in these machines, grab the chips that got caught in the chute. That was enough to feed a couple of street rats for a week. But you know, one day your hand gets too big and gets stuck.
I swear Avasarala gets 2 scenes an episode, or maybe 1 every episode. I was okay with it in the beginning because there's so much to do. And it has come to our attention that she wasn't in the first book, and so she is plugged into this story, I guess, but she's in 2 scenes here. One where it establishes a threat for her, and the other one where she is solving that threat for the future. And, I mean, how do you feel about just that, or that statement of, is it really that sad to say that she's only in 1 scene or 2 when that's just been every time she's shown up, really?
Yeah, I feel like it's because she leaves such a big impression that we often feel like she's in more of the episode than she is, and we are left wanting more of her. Like, we are both very intrigued by her as a character, the quality of the performance, and the situation that she's found herself in and created for herself as well.
She does not abide by, nor does her story abide by the standards and the tropes and or cliches that I see in this genre, especially in science fiction television. So she is very, 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 very exciting to see every time. Because as much as I have grown to like the Holden side of the story or the Miller side of the story or Fred Johnson and any of all of that stuff, I've seen that. In some way, shape, or form, I've played with that. I've seen that be something churned through the sci-fi TV machinery many, many, many times over, and they work. But Avasarala and the UN, I don't see as much. And so I'm captivated by it every single time. Now, I'm not saying it's wholeheartedly original in terms of all of fiction. Of course, there's been many political dramas that have had this stuff in there. Game of Thrones, for instance, for it in the fantasy genre,
And
she would slot in right.
We've seen space politics a bunch.
We have. We've talked about Babylon 5, which has much to do with space politics, but still, this type of character in this type of way is something I want more of. She is unique. She is the thing that I think most people who have not seen The Expanse know about the show. They know about her character. If they have at least a passing familiarity with The Expanse, other than knowing it's a good show, they know it has space politics and she's this badass character that says many funny lines and is very quick-witted and cunning and ruthless and complex. And so we find out what during her story, during her two scenes.
We find out that Aaron Wright is in fact a shady bastard.
No.
Yeah. The music really tells us so.
Also, his face acting really communicates it.
Yeah.
I love that actor. Sean Doyle is a great performer. I really enjoyed him in season 4 of Discovery, as did you. A season that was very lifeless and lacking. He brought so much to it, and he's doing I'm always blown away by him in this show, especially because he clearly is a bad guy, but we're hiding that. And he, as an actor, does step up to the plate and give us those telltale signs that he's clearly shady, but also he plays it in a way where in the world, in that moment, it wouldn't be so obvious to everyone around him that he's in fact evil or in it. He's just a bureaucrat. That's how Sean Doyle really manages to make the character operate. And so he's involved is what we're getting. He doesn't say it directly, but he says it through that bureaucratic lens that we've been seeing him do throughout the entire show, where he will come in and say, "Oh no, Chrissy, no, Avasarala, you can't do it like this. In fact, I've done the research, I've done all the legwork here, and my results point to it like this." And we now are here where
I conveniently just got this report
that's been in the works for weeks, and your research into this
that you heard nothing about.
yeah, like your own research that was on the side, very much helped us. Thank you for that, Chrissy. You did a great job there. Thank you. But we already had it under control. We've had it under control for several weeks now. Why didn't you know about this before? It just all came together now. Hey, look, a rich billionaire. Hey, we're friends. Because he does blame it on the companies. He does push it to, it was probably done through company means, some business, some evil corporation, and they're supplying it back to the Tycho station because we know that they funnel money through private organizations or companies, or in this case, the Mormons. So, we can still blame it on Johnson. And, what did you think of Avasarala's reaction to Aaron Wright?
I love the way that, like, she has a reaction and he notices. And she blames her friend's suicide. And particularly after the conversation that she has with her husband on the roof, it's like, oh, she used that because it was an element of the truth. Because it seems like that was the moment where she realized that it was not a suicide.
It's a game. That's why the UN side story is as exhilarating as it is, because each scene involving those characters is a game of some sort, a political game, a game of chess, a game of testing out what the other person knows while making sure they don't know what you know. And so that moment there, where he saw a sliver of what was going on in her mind and called it out, made it so that she then had to play the game that is politics and turn inwards and use this death as a reason to justify this momentary weakness where the mask slipped from her, where she showed genuine concern, which is a risk for Ehrenreich. If she is somebody that's actually looking into what he's doing, she'll be gone.
She can't be seen to be on the ball. I love the way that she explains it on the roof of like, I just have to be an old lady who's not paying attention to what's happening now.
Stuck in the past.
Caught up in the past. And it's beautiful that starts with the sort of reflection and looking forward of being like, if our son was still alive, he would be older than you were when we met. Of like, that's a potential future that never gets to be. And also looking back on their past and where they started and where they are now. There's so much meaning that is packed into her saying that.
Do you realize our son would now be older than you were when we first met?
Yes. But he'd probably be twice as handsome. Thanks to you.
It's really nice to see her in that space again, because we haven't gotten to see her with her guard down.
She's been very ridged up.
Quite a while, because we haven't seen her just at home with her family.
Yeah, not since he was on the rooftop last, most likely. That's one of the last times I can recollect. And she's been very guarded and been very internal for most of this season. And so to see these moments where she does open up, I really like their relationship. He is one of my favorite character types, which is the partner, the spouse to a powerful person. Where he himself is not a powerful man, but he is married to somebody who is. And that role can be played so many ways and written so many ways. And this is the preferred method I like, which is he completely understands. He knows her, he respects her, but he still is caring for her and worried for her, but he's not undermining. He says, okay, so if you believe Ehrenreich killed Frank, a guy that he knew as well, he knew his husband, like he had a personal investment in as well as like a man. If you're saying Ehrenreich killed this guy that I knew as well, well, that means that you are in danger if you don't play your cards right. And so they talk it through as a couple, but also he's someone that she clearly bounces things off of, and he has an intellect, and he has a background, and he has views. Now, not necessarily saying like he has a political strength as a character,
but he's more than just a mirror.
He's more than just a mirror, and he's more than just the guy to wring his hands and say, no, don't do this, it's morally wrong, be a good person, quotations, good person, and da-da-da-da-da. He's not going to weigh her down. He's not a stone around her neck. he's someone valuable to her in so many different ways. And in this function, he is also a pillar for her. And so when she's saying, you're going to have to go to Luna, you're going to have to go to the moon, she's saying this with this gravitas in her voice of she understands the amount of loss this will bring her and him. And it actually means something.
Yeah, like it doesn't feel like it's not a light decision to send them away. And it doesn't feel like it's just because she's worried of what's going to happen. To me, it has that sense of, like, I'll miss you, but I want to protect you. And him being like, I want to protect you too. Like, you need to take care of yourself as well.
But you know how to do that. She lays it out of, I'm going to play a role. Again, I'm playing this game that is the UN, and in this moment, I'm going to have to fool my boss, my higher up, and maybe even the highest of higher ups, to think that I'm the war horse again, that I'm the person that the audience may have thought of me as in the first episode of the show.
Yeah.
Because
the woman that we first saw, the woman that Aaron Wright had to berate for torturing somebody.
And the woman he shook the hand of in this episode and claimed and proclaimed how much he loved seeing this side of her again. This is the side I really like. The one who says, well, let's threaten the Martians. Let's crush the belt beneath our boots and put things back in order. He underestimates her because he's seen her be this in the past. But now she isn't that. She's moved beyond that, but she will have to put it back on. Like one of her many beautiful outfits. It's just something she has to wear, but it's not actually her. And I think that is going to be something worth watching in the future for, because when we first started the show, did you, I did. I thought she was going to be one of the main antagonists of the show. She just had this aura. She's the rich lady on Earth who has all of the water and all of the power, and she's torturing people for the benefit of the greatness of Earth, while we're cutting to Holden, who's barely surviving on his ice hauler, and we're cutting to Miller, who's on the belt, and they're lower than, and they're the lesser thans. I did think at the beginning that she was framed as kind of an overarching antagonistic figure, not necessarily the antagonist of the show, but somebody who can offer that. And now at the end of this season, and I'm completely different about that perspective, but the show, I think, is aware that that's what they were doing, because now here at the end, she has to portray that. She has to embrace that side whilst knowing that it's not real. Any thoughts on that?
I think more than her being an antagonist, which I get what you mean, because she was a threatening presence.
We kept calling her an evil bitch.
Well, I still don't think that we were wrong about that. Though they keep on shifting our perspective on her so that the shadow and highlights fall in different places, and you never quite know what is the truth with her as a person, as well as like her actions, which is so fascinating.
A majority of this story takes place on Eros Station, and we get the big reveals and the big plays of Julie's whole deal with the body and the proto-molecule. Not going to call it blue goo, I'll try. And we have the evil scientist guy, and he's doing evil scientist shit. He has this whole soliloquy.
Lasers.
Oh, he shoots her with lasers so he can energize the proto-molecule in her, and so it can spread throughout the station and do some shenanigans. But there was this moment, and I want to know your just feelings on it, because I am unsure of how I am about the tone here. He has a conversation, basically a monologue, with
a random dude
with a random
there
scientist guy
as audience,
as a guy, and he asks him, does he have a wife? Does he have a kid? Does he have this? And he gives this big giant, I don't even know if villainous speech is the right term to use, but he gives a speech.
It's ominous.
About how it's good to not have children and that they are disappointing. But hey, Julie, she managed to be this great thing, and now she can help
reached out
benefit.
and touched the unknown, and it touched her back.
And she will be the key to our survival. She will save us all. And he's saying this while draining her of a proto-molecule.
Yeah.
What did you think of just that moment there?
I was just like, okay, so you're sticking around. That was the main thing. And then I was like, oh, okay. It's a bit cliche and dull in a way. It's like, you know, the weird scientist doing a weird speech over a weird body of somebody who's been dead for some time and has something like a further mystery about them. So I was just like, oh, okay. Another example of, oh, that's fine.
She touched the unknown, and it touched her in return. She'll make her father very proud. She's gonna save us all.
He says that Julie's going to help humanity, basically. And that we get the idea that it's because Julie has made sure that they have access, ensured their access to the blue goo. I don't care about calling it blue goo. Saying blue goo is fun.
Proto-molecule.
Proto-molecule. I have to slow down. Blue goo is fun.
Okay. Blue goo is fun.
I'm sure we'll get to the point where we call it by what it actually is, but whatever. So we have him being like, okay, Julie's here and she's serving. She's gonna make her father proud, and that she's doing this benefit for humanity. But we don't know what he thinks will benefit humanity, because I thought of the shadows.
From Babylon 5.
Yeah, from
Agents
Babylon
of
5.
Chaos.
Agents of Chaos,
Eugenics.
and believing that violence and conflict are what propel races forward, and it makes them better and stronger. So the idea of sort of unleashing a plague on the galaxy to
Weed out the weak.
so set off a war between the three major powers of Earth, Mars, and the Belters, and to potentially wipe out all of the Belters, or at least threaten to
destabilize the galaxy.
so that it restores the righteous or the ideal version of the power dynamics. That could be his perspective of that, or it could just be, you're going to make your dad a lot of money now.
I look at it as he is a guy that is wanting to see the proto-molecule used in the ultimate form that one can in science. He comes across as a man of intrigue. That's what he's driven by, the intrigue. We must let it continue to keep developing. It's an adaptive quality to this molecule, proto-molecule. My big concern. Okay, so just to point out as well, we find out that they're using Eros Station as a testing base for the proto-molecule.
All of these cameras and
they're doing research,
and they've hired all of these gangsters.
My thing is of concern because I have to get used to. This is a me thing. I have to get used to that this show is cheesy. Because that speech he gave was very, very cheesy to me. I've seen that kind of bad guy speech a million times over in Sci-Fi. That's not new to me. But I have to get to grips with that the Expanse is cheesier than I was expecting it to be walking in. I was expecting this to be a little bit more grounded and serious, especially with all of the technical stuff they introduced is very much like that. But they're very much playing around in the tropes that this genre likes and many genres like. Hence, we had problems with Miller for most of the show thus far. But this evil scientist... It
does have that sense of wanting to play in the realm of science fiction, and that comes from a love for the genre.
I hope that this is a case of what something like Babylon 5 did, or even Space Above and Beyond did in its early part of the show, which is you give us the stock standard so that way you can subvert it, flip it, or elevate it as you go along. I'm okay with that, so I'm going to put a pin in that concern for now. What I am majorly concerned about, as somebody who has experienced science fiction television, that they're using the proto-molecule for making super soldiers. As somebody who suffered the super soldier arc in the X-Files, I got major flashbacks of it and my skin crawled thinking about it. I also couldn't help but think of how in Jurassic Park they always want to use the dinosaurs, same with the Alien franchise, they always want to use the dinosaurs of the aliens to militarize them and to blend them and to make just soldier more powerful, fighting betterer. And I am so tired of that, so I am concerned that that is a thing at play, especially if the UN are involved in funding this whole entire thing so that they can get their foot in the door with some of this, or at least they're in part with a stealth ship. I am concerned about that. Also because recently I also watched Killjoys as a show, which also had mysterious goo, in that case green goo, that they would infect in people and put in people to convert them into being stronger, better, smarter. I hope it's not that, but I don't know. I know very little, but they're doing evil science mixed with evil business. And so I'm okay enough. I'm hoping that they'll take me down an exciting road with this journey, because when we saw the civilians in their zombie-like state and oozing and pus everywhere, it did make me upset.
Like the effects of them in the background as they're going through the tunnels as well, and hearing like babies screaming. It was very much layered throughout the episode in terms of, like, they did it in all of the ways that they can build atmosphere, through the visuals, through the sound, through camera work, through acting, using all of these tools at their disposal to make you feel for the sort of the lack of humanity and the lack of compassion in terms of them unleashing this on them, but also the fact that our heroes can do nothing about it, but there's power in them surviving and speaking as witnesses.
Hello? People, I think we just gotta fix on the bad guys.
We waited a long time, and the show delivered.
What did it deliver on? I didn't see those Mormons, so it didn't deliver on that.
No, it delivered on Holden and Miller being paired together and them not liking each other.
We got a good taste of that in the previous episode, and it was them together for the whole episode here.
And dying.
Miller more so than Holden.
But I really like that because it makes sense to me, because even though Holden's gone through all of this crap in the recent times, he starts in a healthier place than Miller would, because we know that he was malnutritioned as a child, and growing up on the belt in 0G, or like lower gravity, fucks with your systems and your development. So it makes complete sense to me that it would fuck him over more and quickly, like much quicker than Holden.
I was glued to the screen every time we cut to them. This was actually my favorite part of the episode. I loved all of the stuff with Christian, but it's so minor. So this here is what's really keeping me going throughout the episode, at least the most. I was loving how Miller was annoyed to such a degree with Holden and wondering, what is your purpose? What do you offer? Why are you this guy? Because even at the very beginning, when they're searching for medicine, he asks him, "Oh, are you a medic?" He's like, "Nope, I'm just an asshole." The guy's like, "Okay, thanks, I guess." Okay, so at least the ship will be there? Nope, I told him to leave without me if I don't make it in time. Oh, God, all right.
You are fucking useless, aren't you? You just keep on failing upwards.
But there's the great thing about their relationship is they help ground and balance each other by needling each other. So every time that happens, Holden will have a moment in retaliation of making Miller stop from being a loose cannon and shooting off his mouth all his literal gun and getting them into more trouble, stopping him from getting a death wish from being fulfilled.
Yeah, like the best place is for both of them is to be somewhere in the middle. Like they both have something to learn and benefit off the other character, but they're not at the point where they can acknowledge that. That's a ongoing thing. But we see that as audience members, that it's just like, oh yeah, they'll grow. They'll grow, and it'll be interesting to see if they stay together in this show, if Miller is just now part of the crew.
I wonder how he'll work. But there's things that they do not like about one another, but over the course of the episode, their feelings about those specific things change and grow, not necessarily to the point of it being like a 180. For instance, Holden is afraid. He has very conflicted feelings about shooting and killing people. He's never shot anyone before. He's never killed anyone before. And so when Miller does do those things, Holden is scared. He's not only scared, but he's concerned and he feels sadness. And yet, during the course of the episode, we see that Miller doesn't just deride him for that or doesn't just look at him like he's useless. He almost pities Holden, and then at points also looks at Holden as somebody to envy. I wish I could be you again.
Yeah, like if the world, almost like the world hasn't touched you and you've survived this long believing in possibilities. I really liked sort of, maybe like it's not a full monologue, but there's a couple of lines that are Miller's back to back. And he starts off being like, optimism is for earthers and assholes. And he explains how he grew up in places like this.
Where they're in this pachinko area of the aero station.
Yeah.
It's very gaudy, very over the top, and very shitty looking.
And how they, him and his mate would take chips out of the machines. But then one day their like hands were too big.
Because they grew up as children, they would take these chips out of the machines, and that would help feed them and many others for a week. But as you get older, the hands get bigger, and the struggles get bigger, and the ability to solve them gets smaller. And I agree, that was a really great moment. He has this amazing line, which is, the Belters know that the game's rigged from the very beginning, which I really like that line, and it really gives a different worldview between Holden and Miller, because Holden, he knows things are shitty, he knows things are bad, he knows things are corrupt, but he comes across as a guy who looks at it as, where did it all go wrong? How did this happen? When did this start?
And hopeful.
Miller, yeah, and hopeful that maybe we can
change it.
We just have to
We
capture the
made
scientist.
it.
Yeah.
So we can
Stop it.
fix it. Whereas Miller, okay, gonna get a political angle.
Please keep politics out of my science fiction. I don't watch it for that, and I don't watch this show specifically, the one with space politics in it, for space politics, all right? Enough of your commie nonsense, thank you.
No.
I hate your anti-American stance on this Australian podcast.
Marxist capital of Australia, bitches!
Yeah, Melbourne Marx. You know the M in Melbourne stands for Marx. So you were going to say, what is this? Lay it down on me,
I was going to say,
comrade.
now I'm questioning if I've brought this up before. But I, like, Miller understands, which is the powerful will protect their power. The structures that are in place that put the boot on the Belters and on Mars are not an accident. They were by design. The system wants to keep the powerful powerful and the rich rich and the poor poor and unable to rise up.
It's almost like there's a deliberate reasoning for these poor people, these dejected people, these people who looked at as scum on Aero Station being pawns, lab rats, people to be used and abused by a very big corporate man, don't say it, Rachel, you don't say it, I say it, because it's a forbidden word, but capitalism. Ooh.
In space?
In science fiction? Surely, Rachel, capitalism can't be a bad thing in this show, right? But what you're saying is completely correct. Miller is completely aware, because that's how he grew up. Many people who have grown up poor, who have grown up struggling, who have been a part of a world where these structures are in place and they're designed so that you keep failing and you keep just scraping by, or you just keep on just crawling inch by inch just to get nowhere, you become cynical and you become very aware of why you're here. And he had a moment where him and his friend decided, are we going to be the ass that gets kicked, or are we going to be the boot that does the kicking? And so they became cops, right? Because surely if you become cops, that means all of this will go away, all of this will dissolve, all of this will just flicker in the wind. And that may be the case for some, and cops are a form of power, of course, and his specific brand of cop is in this show is owned by corporations. They're helping the consumer and all of that. But we see here that it still failed him. It still made him where he is today. And so Holden asks him, so what are you now? And he has no answer, because in the end, he's not the boot. He's the ass that's being kicked. And that's what Anderson Dawes has been telling him the whole fucking season, that you aren't the power. You think you are because you wear the damn hat and you have the badge and you have the gun. But that isn't power. You're still enslaved by capitalism. What did you think of the moment where that guy comes in there and they're hiding underneath the machines, underneath the things, and they eventually have to explode into violence, and both of them help kill this guy?
Yeah.
Like, Miller's the one that does a snapping of the neck, but Holden's there pinning him down, looking him in the eyes as it happens.
And it is interesting because of the way that the show deals with and sort of represents Holden struggling with his not just complicity, but involvement in that murder, even though he knows that it's justified in terms of his own survival. And also, we are kind of lured into a sense of, well, we know that they're all gangsters and they're thugs from Ceres, so it's not like it's a good person dying. They negate it almost in that way, so that it's just about the morality of the situation of taking a life, not how much is that life worth. And I really enjoyed the camera movement and positioning in the wake of that death, and sort of the way that it pauses on the details, because that it ties back into the way that Miller talked about his first murder. Well, like the first person that he killed.
Yeah.
And that it was the kid that he noticed. And you naturally wonder, well, is Holden going to think of the hands and the armor and
the eyes?
Yeah.
I felt sympathetic for both of them in this episode, and if there's anything to praise about it, it is that, because these are two characters that I have found it very hard to feel for during this season, and I really thought after a certain point that, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That happens so much for science fiction TV shows, especially ones with an ensemble. You go, okay, these are the ones I like, and these are the ones that I don't, and it's never going to happen. And very rarely does it actually jump over the hurdle, but they're making it a thing here, where when they are succeeding, because Holden and Miller will go on in the episode to kill people, to meet other people, to shoot them, to dress up in their armor, and the back and forth between these two characters, their two different worldviews, and how they both are afraid and yet admire one another, was enriching to me, and it made me like both of them more. They really complement each other, and it makes sense that the two leads that were separated in the show that would eventually meet up would do that, but we never even thought of it in any conversations on the pod of what their relationship would be and what these two would offer to one another, because there are other characters on paper that would be more fascinating to watch. Miller and Amos would be great to see. That was the one I was wanting to see. But this makes sense. And not only does it make sense, it's highly entertaining to watch. On a comedic level, they're very good. On a dramatic level, they're excellent.
And naturally, you evolved into cops.
That was Semi's idea. He said, you want to be an ass, you want to be a boot.
And which one are you now?
I want to just circle around to Miller's obsession with Julie, because that has been fueling him for the entirety of the show thus far. And here he sees flashes of her. She's this figment in his mind that is talking to him, judging him, conversing with him, questioning him, and motivating him throughout this. And she comes in and out of the episode, but each time she does, it's a poignant moment. And I was really drawn to the exchange about how Miller did all of this to find Julie, and he thought if he would find her, he would find something, some answer, some meaning, some purpose. And Holden retorts that he did find Julie, and he did find something. It just didn't go in the way that he expected, but he did do those things. And we know that, thanks to Anderson Dawes saying it explicitly, but in part it's because he's fallen in love with Julie, this idea of Julie. But to me, in this story, it really cemented it that Julie is this symbol of purpose. When we come into this series, Miller is rudderless. He's walking through life. He's doing his job. He's taking the bribes. He's very apathetic to his job. He doesn't really care about the morality. He doesn't really care about the people he's supposed to be protecting or the higher-ups he's supposed to be serving. He's just there doing it because he's a guy.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm here because I'm here because I'm here.
No one likes me. I don't care. Oh, I've got a new partner. I don't care. I've got an old partner that's a former flame of mine. I like to play around with that, but I'm not actually invested. He's very detached when we meet him. And yet, this woman has brought something out of him. Maybe something that was new to him or something long dead, but to me, in the episode, every time she appeared, she offered this drive, this purpose, this meaning to the character. She was challenging him and she was inspiring him in each moment. And when we get to the final beats of the episode, when it comes to her, when they finally arrive at the ship and the hatch opens and there she is, and he's commenting about how it's beautiful, and we get the great comedy cut that it's Amos standing there, but with his dead-eyed face, just that blank expression on his face. But that's how I'm looking at this. What about you? This is a major part of the episode. She keeps coming in and out, and Miller is drawn here because of her. What do you think about how the show has been playing around with Miller's obsession with Julie Mao?
I just don't care that much. I know that it's really important, but it's just not something that grabs my attention much, because it's just like, oh, he's lovelorn for a woman that he never knew and that is now dead. And he pinned all of his hopes on a version of a person that he created himself. the show is doing what it's doing, and it's being very deliberate and articulating the ideas that it wants to follow through on. But I'm just like, okay, you're gonna get over it?
Maybe.
Or are you going to continue to objectify this woman?
Is that the thing that is really getting to you?
Yeah, maybe.
I get it. Because when you break it down, it sounds really pathetic and annoying on the part of the show. That Julie's not a character. We didn't get to know her. She wasn't a real person. She is this thing that everyone is chasing after, which is a great narrative tool. But when you make it the entire thematic spine of a character, like with Miller, who is a terrible person, he's a horrible cop and he loves using violence and he's an alcoholic and he has all of this stuff going on, and you're playing the detective noir thing where he's fallen in love with a femme fatale who's not really for him. But the thing is, he never met her, so it's kind of weird. And even what I said of he's made this version up of her, and now it's realizing like what he's found is purpose. That's great to talk about in terms of like, ooh, that's what you do with character arcs and journeys. And we start out with him being a directionless person, and now he's got a direction. That is great, but to make the journey be that it's because he has built up this imagined version of a real person, it is weird. It's a choice that you make, and it's a gamble. And for me, it's worked because I like Thomas Jane's performance. I've always liked Thomas Jane as an actor, and I've never had a problem with his performance in the show, but I've really come to get in tune with what he's doing and what they're doing with him. And so I'm being far more forgiving of it because I'm mesmerized by the performer. But when you break it down into the little bits, and when we look at it from the scripting level, I would also have the same distance from it as you do.
Oh, I would have been attacking this plot more if it wasn't for him selling it. It's like when we got to the point where he's just like, somebody points out to him and says it to his face, like, oh, you're in love with her. The fact that it wasn't like, oh my God, what a incel simp for like he's catfishing himself. Like, that wasn't the way that we were describing it, because that's how we would have described it if it was done poorly. We would have been like, oh, he's lusting after a woman that he doesn't even know. He's created like a parasocial relationship with her. And I think the like lion's share of why we didn't do that was Thomas Jane.
You have a real life person in this role, and it really can shift things. That's a part of why Holden as a character, although I slam him, although I make fun of him a lot, I don't say I hate the character wholeheartedly, because the actor who plays him is good. Stephen Strait, I do believe is the actor's name, if I'm getting that correct. He does a great job as Holden, and so he holds me back from Holden, but he stops me from despising the character, because I can't deny that he brings him to life, even though it's someone I don't care for. And it's hilarious to find out that Holden is less interesting in the books, and I don't want to get too much into the book talk, but I do wonder what it'll be like to read Miller's side of the story in the books, and to get more, if they do this, I don't know how they write it, but I would imagine that they would lean into the noir detective. You're in his head, so you're hearing all of his thoughts, like you're way more in his brain. I think that would make it work better. But also I could see it being more repellent. So I'm not too sure.
It's beautiful. What?
You guys look like shit.
Holden is a good man. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. He was raised to be a good man.
But what makes him a good man? Can you tell me?
He has sex in 0G.
Yum yum. That is a major conflict for the character. He is told by everyone around him that he's a good man.
And that he's doing the right thing.
And he doesn't feel that way. He feels guilt, he feels burden, he feels responsible. Even though people like Fred Johnson and Miller will say straight to his face, this is all your fault, you suck, you're the luckiest dipshit in the galaxy, for the most part he has people relying on him and believing in him and using him because he's a good man. What makes him a good man? The spy lists off all of these reasons. He gives him all of these reasons why he's a good man. And to Holden in this moment, they feel very hollow.
Yeah.
Empty. And it's not just because the spy is saying this so he can save his own skin, but those things that are being used to define Holden are things that we have complained about with him as a character. They're very shallow. Yeah, they're stereotypically noble and good, but does that make you a person? Like, what is that? And I feel like I've got to give the show some apologies because I really didn't think they were that aware. But I'm getting the strong impression that the show is very, very aware of what they were doing with Holden this season. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they do have an idea of what they were doing, and now they're playing with it more. And it makes me interested to see what happens next. Because it does feel like he's finally getting some dirt sticking to him. But that metaphor doesn't even really work. Because it's not that he is getting dirt on him. Because he's sort of been dirty the whole time. It's the fact that he's got these nicks in him. And he's feeling them and getting splinters.
The idea of our main character on purposely being written as the generic, boring, goody two-shoes hero man, to then actually reveal that he feels burdened and trapped inside of that, and he doesn't even know what that means anymore, is a good idea. And they are playing with it. The introduction of his backstory about being in this weird political cult brought that to the forefront, and now we're seeing it be used in text with him in the story, because he would love to be like Miller, right? In that moment, like, he wishes he could just shoot this guy in the face and have it be over with.
Because I found it really interesting that, like, they hear the footsteps, sort of Miller goes to investigate, and then Holden says, no, I'm gonna do it. And I'm left questioning, did he take that opportunity to potentially save that person's life? Or to test himself?
I think it's him trying to challenge himself. Because
what was he hoping? Was he hoping that he would have the guts to kill the person?
I think he was, because he looks disappointed
that
he let him go, and that Miller saw it. But Miller's expression,
panting when he's like fired off all of the shots.
Holden, you're growing on me like some blue goo. I mean, proto-molecule. I was drawn to him here. I really like this notion of being a good person gets you nothing, but you can't help but be one, because to him as well, what he's witnessed is people who do the things that he morally objects to, it's okay. They're okay. Miller, Amos, Naomi, even Alex to a minor degree, all these people he serves with and is friends with and are on his side.
If not,
they get by and they succeed and they're doing great.
The people that are further up the food chain that are doing worse things than he's doing are thriving.
Yeah, and when you look at it from just a societal level and what this event is on this station, yeah, people who are just shit and treat human life like it's nothing come out on top, and that can be maddening. And here he has the opportunity, even the slightest opportunity, to take a bite of that apple, and he can't do it. And it upsets him that he can't do it. That's good. That gives me the dirt and the grain and the grit I've been needing from the character.
Because he has this sense of humanity and life being worth something. But the world treats life like it's not.
He has military experience. He was an officer, like he served and then he got kicked out. So he should know how to use a gun. He should know how to kill people. But he still recoils from that. He says, I don't know how to shoot. I've never shot anyone. Yeah, you may not have shot anyone, but you should know how from your background, right? But he had to go through the training, he was all registered, he was all there proper at some point, at least enough where you, the audience, would assume this. But he still has that humanity that he wishes on a level he could shed, but we see with everyone else that has, it's a burden, it's a toll on their soul.
It's a burden to not have it, but it's a weakness to have it.
Thus, Holden being the boring white knight Don Quixote chasing after windmills protagonist is actually a viable option for the lead of this series, because he has the inverse problem to everyone else, where everyone else wishes that they weren't in this moral decay, that they weren't. I mean, Amos, not so much. He seems fine. But of our main leads of like Naomi, Miller, and Avasalara, they all have that problem. But he doesn't. He's on the inverse. He's like, I kind of wish I could be where you guys are, but I can't because I have my own things. It's good. And we get him playing around with perceptions that people have of him. When Miller tries to do the, you earthers never appreciate what you have, you don't even know what rain tastes like, you've never even thought of it. Why would you leave heaven? Basically. You left Earth. Why would you do that? What a foolish... As somebody who wishes they could be from there and live there and have all of the glory and all of the comforts, why did you do that? And Holden just says it straight up, because everything I loved was dying around me. End of conversation. Miller gets it. Miller's been there.
What does rain taste like?
I never thought about it.
How could you ever leave a place like Earth?
Everything I loved was dying.
We have a bit of a union moment in the show this episode.
Don't bring up the unions, Rachel. That's commie talk. But we do have them, kind of. Well, guards stopping other guards from leaving. Hey, we hired you for a job. You stay here. We want to leave.
You got to go to this other place.
But it looks like that other place is a trap to kill us. Go there. No. Go there. No. And then it takes Miller and Holden dressed up as fellow thugs to start a strike.
Just poking a little bit.
Oh, can we appreciate just one detail? I always get annoyed by this in every show, but I appreciate that they did it here. They are wearing other people's clothes and they don't fit them.
They
The helmets are so wrong on their heads. The outfits are clearly wrong size. I love that attention to detail. It always annoys me in shows that they can just put those outfits on and it's fine.
Yep.
It's always fine. It always fits just right. It always looks good because you don't want to make your characters look, conspicuous. Well, guess what? That's not how it would work, dummies.
No. There was this. I just want to rewind for a second for when they get those uniforms.
Like killing people and then they're having to clean the blood off of it.
When Miller is wiping the bloody helmet on the dead man's leg.
That was good. We know how he feels about corpses. He treats them just like flesh, just like they're not alive now.
He's like poking around in the body for the tech thing. It's just like, what? He's not going to care about an extra hole. I love like the practicality of it. Of like, it's flesh. It's meat.
This episode had a bit more fun to it than the last one.
Yeah,
the starting a riot and
them just
the outfits not fitting and
using things to their advantage and talking through things together.
Miller playing a thug, like he was acting. Miller was acting like a bad guy. I liked that because he obviously has to encounter these, and this is his impression of them. I really liked how Thomas Jane played that, where he just cut to him and he's got a different body language and he's talking with the accent.
And
with the
trying
Belter
to
accent.
hide his face a bit.
Because
he sees a person he knows.
The guy who impaled Havelock is there, and that's a moment of tension, but the guy looks at him, and I can't tell, because it was quick and the acting was subtle enough. Do you think the guy knew who he was?
I think he recognized him as a cop.
And he just accepted it.
Yeah.
I got that vibe. I had that sensation of he knew who he was, but damn it, we're striking.
Also, like, it's like, oh, well, if you're here, then you might be OPA too.
Perhaps, or if you're here, something must be going down seriously. But we get this moment. We get the shootout. Or it might just
be okay, it's you, but you're still right. So let's roll with it.
Let's start a shootout. They have a shootout. Holden is on purposely missing and fucking up and running and ducking and covering and wounding people rather than actually doing anything major. And we clear out the things. Our heroes are running towards the lift and they turn around and Miller offers, hey, come with us, to the guy who impaled Havelock, only to shoot him in the face, turn around to Holden and said, he deserved it. It's a long story. And I really wish he said instead to Holden, yeah, he deserved it. I would tell you, but it's a really boring story, actually. I can't believe that we tied up the Havelock stuff by not even having him here.
I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it, but it's also lazy in a way, because all of that had to do with Havelock. Havelock's he's avenging Havelock, but Havelock doesn't care. We don't know what, it's all nothing to me. When that moment happened, I will be very honest with you, it was very hollow to me.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, okay, you're tying up that sort of loose end.
If it was,
I didn't give a shit, but okay.
Yeah, if it wasn't attached, if it wasn't a thread in a story that was, and a character that was the noose around the neck of this season, I would actually be caring about it, because it's a funny scene, it's a good end to it. If you're writing it out, yeah, that's how you would wrap that up. It's very there's a celebratory factor to it, like, yeah, that's really funny and awesome, but too bad it's related to a thing that was the major weakness of the show. So I'm left there going, whatever. And so they eventually go back to the Rossi, they get saved, they get brought in, they're getting the medical treatment, And Miller looks, and there's his childhood friend, the one that helped him become a cop, the one that was the person who knew him best, dead on the floor. And Amos just admits, yeah, I shot him. And so now we have a little bit of a conflict between these two.
They got beef.
They've got beef. They gave each other the stink eye. And I'm here for it. I said if Amos and Miller met, they're either going to be best friends or they're going to get into a punch-up. And we've had a bit of one. Hopefully we get a bit of the other.
Was this a September down there? Yes. I shot him.
Do you think Naomi is OPA?
I think she was OPA, and she isn't anymore, but she believes in the cause, but not Anderson Dawes anymore. That's my theory.
I believe that she was previously OPA, but I don't know what her deal is, because they also clearly are playing around with the Anderson Station incident a lot, evoking it here, her relationship with this child that they found, and clearly she's looking at her as a version of her younger self. Whatever went on there, we haven't got... I actually am surprised. I thought we were going to get a moment that gave us a bigger reveal of what her backstory was by the end of the season, but I'm okay with them stringing this out for a while. I'm not angry at them for not telling me by the end of the season, but I don't know what her deal is with the OPA, because I would also imagine just leaving the OPA, that mustn't be an easy thing to do. I think there would be some ramifications for that. And perhaps that's also why she is where she is, right? Because that was a question. Why would somebody with your expertise, your skills, your knowledge be hiding away on this ice hole for all of this time? Maybe that's an answer as to why. And she also clearly doesn't like Fred Johnson. She makes that clear. I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps Fred Johnson becoming a member of the OPA made that divide, because we also still don't know how he became a member. How did somebody with his track record, how did somebody with his past and reputation and status in the world become so high up in what would be the opposition? Some organization that you would argue would form and fight because of what he did.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that, and that's one I'm excited. I hope they give us it. If they don't, I'll be very upset. I'm sure there's a book about it.
It's the thing that we sort of keep on going back to and circling around is this episode showcases the potential of these ideas, which doesn't necessarily make for a really exciting finale.
A thing, too, that makes it odd is they're setting up all of these things, but most of them, to me, are not ones where I'm frothing at the gills about them. You know what I'm saying? There's one or two where I really want to know what's going to happen with them, but most of them, I've got a passive level of engagement where it's I'm not, like I just said, Naomi's backstory. I don't need it right away like I do with what Avasalara's next move is going to be, or what Miller's next move is going to be. There are some ongoing storylines in shows or ongoing mysteries in shows where you watch it going, oh, they'll tell me when they tell me. But I'm not needing it right now because it's not that level of engagement. And I would say like 80% of the stuff that they've got bubbling away here is at that level of, they'll tell me when they tell me. But Naomi, they intonate that she is probably OPA because she knows how to get to the docks through these OPA methods, that through these shafts that is in the station, the OPA would use them to smuggle stuff and to run through and be sneaky, and she knows about it. And they're going to go off with the Miller's cop friend and now two new people, a child, a little girl, and this scruffy man, as they describe him, who are just civilians who have managed to not be captured. And they overheard this and they ask, can we please come with you? And of course, they are brought along because Naomi is compassionate and Amos cares about children. What did you think about that aspect of the episode, where we have the story where they're lost in the tunnels? They can't find the exit properly because maybe it's been boarded up, or maybe you're wrong and maybe you're bad, Naomi. But through this, you have this small girl.
Solution being kick it.
Oh my God. Did we guess it? We've been saying, even when it wasn't literally it, that their solution to the problem is just to kick it. And they did actually do that here. Their solution was, maybe we should just kick it until we get our way through. And it worked. It worked. They just kicked it. They begrudgingly did so. There was a level of sadness to them doing it, where Amos and Alex gave a look to each other like, I guess we'll have to kick it. But what did you think of the little girl part of the story?
I quite enjoyed it. I was disappointed when she did go away because I was hoping for more from that. Because it again, I was interested in that dynamic in that situation. But I'm also was like, it's dangerous bringing in a kid actor.
Oh no, you don't want to do original Battlestar Galactica. There's a reason why the remake eventually, very quickly got rid of that little kid they introduced in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I get it. But also I was like, oh, that was interesting. Hopefully that means something more, because it felt heavy with meaning, but because we don't understand Naomi fully yet, we don't understand that interaction.
I think it highlights something we haven't really got to see much of for her, which is how she feels when, as a leader, because she's been the leader of the group during the show. Hence, she makes a comment to Holden at the end about, leadership is shitty, you can have it back. That lesson of leadership is shitty, because she's been winning for the most part. The biggest inconveniences she's had is the ship repairs itself. Oh no. But she hasn't really faced failure, or what she would consider to be failure. And to her, this is it. The ultimate form of failure. I couldn't save a life, and not only a life, but a child's life. A child that reminds me of myself. And so I think that was really what was the takeaway here of what does Naomi look like and how does she react when she's up against failure, when she's up against the sand falling between her fingers, because she wants to save not just the child, but all of these people. And only a handful of them come with her. The cop guy's undermining her position and killed somebody, or at least left somebody to die, completely disregarding her leadership. And I don't know. There's something about it where it just left me lacking. And maybe it's because in comparison to all of the great, wonderful, wacky, over-the-top character stuff that we get from the other stories, this feels very quaint. And also it's just them in tunnels or shafts for most of it. And so visually it's not really grabbing me either.
It's a bit too close to a cave set for Ryan's tastes.
I mean, is this the lesser story in the episode for you, or what? How did I mean? Because you don't sound like you were as thrilled by the Miller stuff. So, what do you think? Tell me a bit more your opinions on Naomi and the journey she's going through here.
I was just like, okay with it. I think it's like...
Rachel, what did you think of any aspect of this episode? I think I was just okay with it overall.
I know. But like we've said, none of it was bad. It was just okay. And I think, I'll be honest, the last moment with Naomi really soured me on her in this episode.
Because it was romance between her and Holden.
Yep.
You don't-
They got the goo-goo eyes going on.
and the holding hands.
And I just
Don't want it.
don't want it. I just don't want it. Like, it's not like I want her with Amos either. But I just don't feel the need to have a romantic subplot in this show. Like, they're like, oh, well, Julie's died, so we can't actively romance that situation. Instead, she's becoming more like an angel than a romantic figure
Oh, come on.
in Miller's life.
She'll come back as spores. We saw that get hinted with
Yeah.
the spy guy where the proto-molecule is replicating essences of people with spores. And since she is literally where they're draining it from, I imagine they can bring her back maybe as a clone or a new form or a spore form. Maybe I'm traumatized from Star Trek Discovery doing that exact idea with Hugh coming back as a mushroom version of himself, a spore form, but they're hinting at it.
Yeah,
So,
like, I don't feel like Julie is gone forever. I feel like they have avenues to bring her back, be it flashbacks or alternate versions of her existing, be it clone or spore form, or she's the consciousness of the
blue goo.
that forms in a ball.
She's gone. Good girl. I thought if I could find Julie, finally know something. You did find her, Miller.
She freezes when the cop points the gun at her, and she doesn't know what to do. She pauses. She's being undermined. She's having to try and talk her way out of it, knowing that it won't work. And so Amos shoots the guy and kills him. And again, that is totally destroying her because that's not what she wanted out of it. This is all very juicy when you talk about it. But for some reason or another, I just don't get much out of it. And again, I think it's maybe because she didn't get in. You know what it is? I know what it is. Holden and Miller, they're chalk and cheese. They're button heads.
Mm-hmm.
The cop guy is totally normal with her.
Yeah.
Totally reasonable. He's objecting to her at points well enough, but nothing compelling to watch. And then randomly, it becomes super serious that they're locking horns because he most likely killed that guy.
When we got the shot of his weapon in his pants.
Yeah, they telegraphed it for us. We knew he had a gun, so why did they do that? Because they wanted you to know that will come back in a
he's
scene.
dangerous.
He's now dangerous. And if he was better as a character, if he was there as somebody to be a more active counterpart, and not only that, to offer good points against her, I think this would make the story way better. Think back to the interrogator to Lopez. That was a great story for Naomi because he was nuanced and complex and offering these intriguing counterpoints to her character and bringing something out of her that we had only seen under the surface. That didn't happen here. What happened here is she was going, oh, give me a break. And he goes, all right, I'll give you a break. And then at some point during the script, it flips to, oh, he's evil now. He's unreasonable. He's scared. He's crazy. We need to take him out.
He's evil now. And she gets dumb.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is that when she just has some lines where it's like, no, you're smarter than that, Naomi. You're smarter than that.
Same with the cop.
Of like her freezing and being like, what do you mean you're holding me at gunpoint?
I mean, that...
but like, and the other one.
See, that one I'm fine with because I think it makes sense because it's a shock. Because like we've been on the same side. Why are you fighting me now?
Yeah, but it's also like she's a person that always has a plan. So, like, I feel like she was tipped off by him killing the belter.
Or leaving
that
him
got
for dead,
infected. Yeah. Well, the shot of the gun suggests that...
You think they would have heard it, though, if he had shot him.
Yeah. True.
But Amos knows.
Yeah. But also, like, there's so many other sounds and...
Screams.
Whatever. The moment that really got me was when Alex is talking to her. And is worried about what if one of them is infected.
Oh, about Holden and Miller. They may be infected and they've brought it back to us. No, Holden would not do that.
Holden wouldn't do that to us? It's like her response to Alex being, what if they don't know that they're infected? And I was just like, what the fuck, you dumb bitch?
It's because she loves him. I could not. See, that stuff I could abide with more. And it's funny because what you're saying, I can agree with as well. And we've known her for a longer time, so there's more feelings towards her. The cop guy, whose name I don't even know. They've said it. They've said it.
Starts with an S?
It's like Sammy. I thought they really screwed his character over. This was a guy who was so upright and together that
turn
he stood,
did not work.
He stood in front of these freaking armed gangsters in cop uniforms and said, no, I'm not allowing this. He got into a gunfight like an inch away from their face. He was willing to do that. He was cool as a cucumber there. Him and Miller, all of their exchanges, same thing. And now he's freaking out in this way that I thought was completely trivial. It made no sense to me. It really felt arbitrary on the writer's part. They know that they wanted these particular things and this particular conflict to be ongoing because, now Miller's going to get upset because Amos killed his best friend and all of that. And I just really wish that I could understand the headspace that character was going through, because it's not enough to show us shots of him giving a grumpy face look as he sees a belter who's been infected. That's not enough, especially since the most vibrant thing of his character was how he stood up for that crowd of people getting shot at. That there is something that is hard to remove from the brain. So since that's there, that's at the forefront of my brain, that's the one thing I think about with the character, to see him turn here, it was too big of a leap for me. If there was more time spent with him, if he was more active of a character, or if there was another episode to flesh him out, maybe, but it really dragged the Naomi stuff down for me because it undermined her in a way that I didn't believe, because I didn't believe it coming from this guy. What would you rate this on a scale of yum being bad and yum being good? No half yums, no in-betweens. What would you give Leviathan Wakes?
Yum. Because it's just okay. It's not good. It's not great. It doesn't make me want to dive into the next season. It's just acceptable.
Same sentiment. I also give it a yum.
Yeah.
It was fine. That's its biggest problem, is it was fine. I'm not going to remember this episode. I'm going to remember the first part way more.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to remember the Holden and Miller stuff. But here, yes, there's big things for the ongoing storyline. And I just really want to emphasize this for people, because I know some viewers of entertainment get really, they get really attached to big story things. And I do as well. But that's not the only thing that makes an episode good to me. A big pushing forward of the narrative or a big reveal of the lore and the arc does not equate to me as it being great on its own.
I think regular listeners of the pod, the true yumlings, will know how much we both love character-based episodes.
Or character-based moments within episodes.
Oh,
yeah,
sure. Those too.
And this did have it.
Yeah.
But it just
and those
wasn't...
were the main things that we liked.
And the main things we wanted to talk about. But even then, the character stuff here was dry in lots of ways that were reminiscent to the first half of the season. Now, we will be back next week with our recap, our overview, our look back on the first season. We'll talk about the high points, the low points, things we loved, the things we didn't, and go over just how we felt about it. A little bit more in detail. So we won't be kicking off with season 2. Holistically, yes. Dirk Gently. And I will love it so much if you guys would join us for that and let us know your thoughts on the season as well. Some of your favorite episodes, your favorite character, or your favorite moments, or things that didn't work for you, because I don't know the general opinion on The Expanse's first season. I know that some people say that, it takes to this point for it to get good. I've heard very mixed responses. Some people say, it takes to episode 3, or it takes to episode 8. And some people say, no, season 2 is when it gets into gear. But I would love to hear from people your thoughts on the season overall. Did you love it the first time you watched it? Is it something that reflects better on those rewatches? Obviously, do not spoil things for us, but I'm really wanting to know that from you guys.
It does give that vibe as it would be different in retrospect, especially because we've had that experience with the show already just within this season. So it feels like that would hopefully be sort of compounded over time.
It reminds me of Voyager's first season, where it's got good episodes in there, some good character stuff. Arguably, you could say out of that era, the Berman years of Star Trek, Voyager's first season is probably one of the better ones. But it's not something that you would necessarily write home about and go, you gotta check out.
Like, it's not it's not a high recommend.
Or Babylon 5's first season, where it's doing stuff, but
and
there's
it's very important to the show overall, which is, I think, will also be the case with The Expanse.
Is this a case of you must eat your vegetables first to get the steak? We'll have to see.
That is kind of what the start of the season did feel like. But thank you all for listening. If you want to check us out on the various social medias, they're linked below, or you can search yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast.
please share the show around. We would very much appreciate it if you could tell everyone you know, even if they're not watching The Expanse. Maybe we can help them start watching it. But it would mean the world to us if you could help spread the word of the podcast out there to folks. And we release these episodes first on our Patreon for our patrons, who we thank you all so much for being there and supporting us, patrons. Thank you all. And if you are not a part of the Patreon and you're hearing this on the main feed, it would be totally radical of you and hella cool. I'm down with the kids. We've got a TikTok. I think we're down with the kids. But in all seriousness, if you do come over and support us on Patreon, you get a load of bonus content, including further discussions of The Expanse. We will be far ahead. We'll be further ahead when in comparison to when we release this on the main feed. And we have a group Discord. You can discuss things with us over there. But that is all we have for you. If you do want to contact us more directly, you can email us over at
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
This is a very disappointing finale to a season because somebody didn't show up.
We got belters.
And they were gaunt.
We got essentially Miller doing an impression of this character.
Oh, you're right. I almost should give the episode a yum yum for that alone. That's a good idea. That he based his performance, Miller's performance is based on the gaunt belter preacher guy.
Wait, did you know?
I didn't think of him as basing it solely on that guy. I thought of him as just like a generalized, but you know what? Yeah.
You know that he's drawing on that, right?
Of course. I didn't give it. See, this is why a rewatch should happen, because I could pick up on those little details. Brilliant. But until next time, Yumlings, remember that the Gaunt Belter is still out there.
His spirit lives on.
His spirit and his words live on. I need to hear a thick belter accent say dusters yet again. Season 2, you've got some big shoes to fill.
Deliver. Or else.
See you then. Well, voila.